Welcome to India on 99.94, the home of cricket audio. I'm Nikesh Shrigani, host for this particular podcast on the 99.94 network, journalist, broadcaster, and commentator based in the UK. My co host, as you can see, and you'll hear in a moment if you're listening to us on the audio feed, Sarah Warris of Wisden. And just a reminder that we are your home for India cricket content on the radio, on YouTube, or on your podcast feed. And we'll be right here several times a week discussing all the issues that are important to you. You can find us on your favorite podcast apps, YouTube, as I say, or in our very own 99.94 app. So head to your app store and download that right now. Thank you very much for joining Cricket's Conversation. Today, we're talking about the Asia Cup 2022. Sarah, let's kick off then. How are you, by the way? You well?
I'm good. How are you? How's
Yeah,
the
good,
heat?
thank you. The heat's all right. The heat's calmed down in England at the moment. It's still quite humid, but it's nice, sort of mid-20s, which is perfect, really. A little bit cloudy. The sun pops out now and again. So perfect weather for all of us, perfect cricket weather in England as well. And it's quite non-stop, actually. I don't know, did you guys get the 100 over there on TV in India?
We do. Uh, Honestly, I've not watched a single match. I didn't
Okay.
watch any last year. There's a 60 starting from tonight. Don't think I'll really be watching that
Yeah, I
either.
mean, it's just
Yeah.
taking it one step further, isn't it? The 60 over in the
There's just
Caribbean
too
as well.
much cricket. So,
There
whatever
is.
chances you can get.
Yeah, try and have a breather.
Yeah.
I'm doing from Friday. I think I'm doing 3 out of 4 days on 100 commentary duty for the BBC as well. So it's a no break for me as well. I've got football in between that as well. I cover football for the BBC on Saturdays. So yeah, it's basically a weekend full of sport and work and
Right.
trying to watch the Asia Cup in between all of that, which of course kicks off on Saturday as well. Saturday the 27th over in the UAE. Look, we haven't had an Asia Cup, Sarah, since 2018, pandemic, obviously, and everything else that went in between. So we're finally there once more. It's a T20 competition between the best sides in Asia, which used to, I mean, a long time ago, there wasn't really much competition. It was India, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, and that was it. Then Bangladesh came onto the scene, and it was pretty much just those four sides. And now there appears to be, okay, not the same level of competition, but there are other sides knocking on the door. There are Afghanistan are already qualified for the group stages. And as we speak right now on this podcast, at the time of recording, we don't know who has done what in the qualifying tournament up until the end of that particular qualifying round. But you've got teams like Kuwait, Oman, the UAE themselves as well, Hong Kong. So it's opening up the field, at least, isn't it, to some of these associate nations to have an opportunity to play against the better sides in Asia, which the World Cup doesn't do. The T20 World Cup doesn't do to the same extent because you're looking at the whole world. More teams make the group stage. You get the odd one or two sides creeping in there, like we saw last time. The 50 over World Cup doesn't do that. That's pretty much a closed shop now. So it's good, right? It's spreading cricket far and wide.
Uh, Kuwait just defeated Singapore in the qualifier today, and they have a very good chance of qualifying for the main round. Uh, we all assumed it could be UAE, but Kuwait have been so good and they are on top of the table. I think they need UAE to lose their last match. I'm not very sure of the qualification scenarios, but yeah, so it'll be like a d- dream for them. We saw Hong Kong a few years ago. They ran India close in the Asia Cup, couldn't really get over the line. But even these close wins, playing against India, is just a uh, thing in their resume that we've played against India, we've played against Pakistan in the Asia Cup. So, yeah, very exciting for them.
Yeah, it's a dream, isn't it, for some of these
Yeah.
associate nations? But let's talk about the big boys then. And look, we're going to preview India versus Pakistan in more detail in our next episode here, ahead of that big monster clash on Sunday, the one that everyone's looking forward to. But what we know so far is that it's India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan already through to the group stages. One qualifier to then be placed into India and Pakistan's group, which is Group A, and then the other group consisting of Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan. Let's start with that second group then, the Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Afghanistan. That's not a foregone conclusion, is it? Because if you look at Group A, okay, it's India versus Pakistan. There's going to be a winner, there's going to be a loser, but both of them are heavily likely to be in the Super Four stage, which is the next stage. All the sides play each other once in the group stage. Top two sides go through to the Super Four stage, and then they again have a round robin where they all play each other once, and then the top two sides go into the final from that Super Four. So unless India or Pakistan lose to each other and the side that lost that one also loses to a qualifier, maybe Kuwait, we're saying at the time of recording this podcast, very unlikely to happen. So India and Pakistan, you would imagine, would go through to the Super Fours, and I don't think that's really a coincidence. Maybe that has happened. But then the other group, it's quite open, isn't it? Yeah, Afghanistan, the weaker of the three sides, but on their day, as we've seen on a few occasions in recent times, in the last couple of years, they can be stiff competition for anyone. That group, I wouldn't say wide open, but it's fairly open, isn't it?
They have Rashid Khan, and like he is enough
Yeah,
for most teams. Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, are they not consistent enough? Sri Lanka off late have been doing pretty well. Uh, but yeah, it's anyone's game, and I'm not really surprised that India Pakistan have been placed in the same group with the qualifier. Just maximize the number of games India Pakistan play in the event. They are likely to play in the second stage also,
yeah.
potentially the final also. So yeah, not really surprised with the groupings. Second, uh, besides India Pakistan in Group A, Group B will have more exciting matches, obviously, because three not consistent teams in consistently inconsistent teams. You can say so.
Yeah.
Pretty,
I mean,
yeah,
Bangladesh
exciting.
Bangladesh might. I mean, look, they're playing down their chances. Shakib Al Hassan, the new captain, the returning captain of the Bangladesh side, has sort of played down their chances of winning the Asia Cup or even making the final. But on their day, tell you what, if they click, but I suppose it's the same with Sri Lanka as well, but more so Bangladesh, I think, the way they've been playing white ball cricket overall over the last probably 5 years now, maybe even a little bit longer than that, especially in those conditions. They're in the UAE, the ball turns, it's quite similar to playing in Bangladesh. They can be a real handful, and they should label themselves, if not anybody else doing it, as favourites to win their group, to beat
Yeah,
both Sri Lanka and Afghanistan if they play
yeah.
well.
Yeah, along with Shakib, as you said, there is Mehdi Hassan also, who's like both of them have formed a very lethal combo. There's Mushfiqur Rahim, who's been around for ages, Mustafizur Rahman. So, in no way would you say that Bangladesh can't qualify for the like for even the finals. Probably if things go their way, they can, like, one good day, two good days, you never know, because the conditions will be in their favor. We've seen what they've done in conditions which help them. So yeah, you never know what can happen.
So I mean, we've talked there about two spinners, and let's just get into it. Look, it's going to be a battle of spinners and who can bat against those spinners. Obviously, you've got to see out the very new ball, and it might do something for an over or two in the UAE, but it's not going to do too much more beyond that. You might have your seamers coming in for the last couple of overs at the death and things like that, but ultimately, the spinners are going to run the show over in the UAE. We've talked about a couple of great ones there, Mehdi Hassan and Shakib in the Bangladesh camp. Sri Lanka have got Hasaranga. Now, Hasaranga, he's taken 39 wickets in 25 T20 matches this year already. 26 of which were in the IPL. No spinner has taken more wickets in an IPL season than Wanindu Hasaranga. He's going to be a handful. And India know all about him as well, don't they? Yeah, they're not going to come up against him in the group stage, but they know all about him. They've faced him in recent times. They've been undone by him. A lot of the players playing in the IPL have been undone by him as well. Now, the massive threat that they've got, Rashid Khan as well for Afghanistan, but the Hasaranga threat is he? You know, the stats would show that he's been the most successful spinner in T20s this year. Is he that good? Is he the main man right now? Is everybody looking up to him in terms of wicket taking ability?
Yeah, I think Kohli, like when India face off against Sri Lanka, Kohli will have a very stiff battle against Hazaranga, especially because of the RCB angle also. So yeah, you had a very good point, and it would be interesting to see because even Chahel is right up there. Just one correction: Chahel won the purple cap this year for 27 wickets, so he ended as the
You're
most.
right. No, he did. He
Yeah,
did. In terms of
he
the
was
yeah,
the most highest
Chahal
wicket among
played
spinners.
more though, right? Because he went through to
Yeah,
the.
he played more.
That's right. Yeah. So in
Yeah.
the group stage, I was talking about there,
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
him having the record there, winning the Hasaranga, and out of the group stage, 14 matches,
Yeah.
nobody
Yeah.
has got more than 26 wickets. So that was the stat. So yeah, apologies for that, Chahal, pipping him in the end, but playing more games to do so. So they've got Hasaranga. There's no Chameera. Is Chameera going to be a big miss? We'll talk about the other seamers that are missing from the other sides in a moment. But is Chameera going to be a big miss for Sri Lanka? The experience, the spearhead of the attack.
Yeah, Sri Lanka again. Just when things seem to be falling in place for them, they did very well recently at home in the few matches. They uh they have these injuries, which puts them on the back foot. So it will be a big miss. I I would want Sri Lanka to do well. But yeah, let's see how like if they can live up to the pressure and the expectations.
Yeah, I mean, we used to know quite a lot about the Sri Lanka side, didn't we? Probably over the last decade or
Yeah.
so, India have played them, every year, non-stop, couple of series a year at least. If they've got a break somewhere in the year, oh, let's play Sri Lanka, or let's invite Sri
Yeah.
Lanka here, let's tour Sri. It was getting to a stage where it was getting ridiculous. So, look, there have been some battles recently between India and Sri Lanka. It has been toned down just a touch, which is good because sometimes when sides have played each other so often, and again, I know they're not in the same group, but they're likely to play each other in the Super Fours if things go to plan. And sometimes if sides play each other so often, it can get a bit dull. The players almost nullify each other, don't they? The batters will know the bowler's strength, the bowlers will know the batter's strength. It almost becomes a bit dull. It's not there's no real surprise element to it. And then you look on the other hand with India, Pakistan, who just never play each other bilaterally. That's completely the opposite. You would like to see them play each other a little bit more often in those bilateral series, perhaps, and hopefully one day that will happen. And it's almost too much of a shock factor, like we saw the Indian batter just like rabbits in headlights when Shaheen came in and bowled that first over and that first spell really in the T20 World Cup last time around. So it is quite interesting, and it's good that there will be at least some surprise element with none of these sides really having played too much against each other in recent times. Let's stick on the spinners theme because we've talked about Bangladesh, we've talked about Rashid Khan and the threat Mujib as well from Afghanistan will be a threat, probably bowling in the power play. Sri Lanka's Hasaranga leading their attack. India have got an interesting one. India have gone really spin heavy this time around. They've got Chahel, they've got Jadeja, they've got Ashwin, they've got Bishnoi. I mean, Ashwin, if you look at those four spinners,
Deepak
could
Huda.
be Deepak Huda as well as a
Not a
part-time
yeah,
option, yeah.
yeah.
But in terms of the four frontline spinners, Ashwin's probably a fourth choice, isn't he, in this format of the
Hmm.
game? I mean, Bishnoi, you could argue, but Bishnoi's been preferred to him in the T20 international side in recent times. Is there any point in taking somebody like an Ashwin for this, or is it just important to have him around the team for the fact that he's one of the senior players, he's got all the experience, he can almost be a mentor to some of the younger guys? Because realistically, he's not going to play, is he? Or is he?
Again, not uh, he's not done very badly in whatever chances he's got. He has an economy rate of 6, which is pretty decent for a spinner. He did well. He's been doing very well with the bat also. In the IPL, we've seen him
As a
hitting.
pinch hitter at
Yeah.
the top of the order. You see him
Yeah.
coming in at number 3 for India in one of these
Yeah.
matches, maybe against the
So
qualifier. Who knows?
yeah, you never know. Um, Probably, last year after the IPL, they tried out so many spinners. There was Varun Chakrabarti, there was Rahul Cheher, um, Kuldeep off late has totally like fallen off the radar. So India's strength was spinners, so to say, for the longest time. And now suddenly, if you look down, you're like, okay, who are your top 5 or 6 spinners? You don't have so many spinners. In the team, there was Krunal Pandya, but he's nowhere there right now. Sundar is always injured, very sad. He's just 21, 22. He's just been injured for the longest time. So I think Ashwin is. I don't think he's going to play, but he's in the mix to probably India making a team, a group for the World Cup and for the ODI World Cup next year. And they are like settling on these 4 or 5 spinners. So I think that's why, just assembling the unit, so to say. He's definitely in the midst, not only for this T20 World Cup in Australia, the Asia Cup, obviously, he's in the squad, but even for the ODI World Cup next year, because, yeah, who are your spinners right now? Indian spinners, it makes you like, there are not many options. So, not a bad
Yeah.
choice, I'd say.
That's fair enough. I mean, when you look at the seam bowling options, no Bumrah, of course. He's out with an injury, and they're hopeful he'll be fit for the T20 World Cup. At least there's no point in risking him before that, if even if it is just a niggle. We don't quite know the extent of his injury, but you've got Bhuvi in there, who, with all his experience and his know-how and his success against Asian sides in the past, which were against everyone really, but particularly against Asian sides. He's got a decent record against Pakistan, as we know, made his debut in T20s against Pakistan, did so well. And Avesh Khan is the other option. And then Arshdeep, who's probably going to play. He's your death bowling specialist, along with Bhuvi, who can do it both ends, of course. And then who else you got? Hardik Pandya is your
Yeah.
fourth seaming option. They're not going to play 4 seamers, and even if they do play Hardik Pandya, he might not bowl in every game, and that might be the route that they go down. But it looks quite light to me in terms of firepower. Just, you don't look as an opposition side at that India squad in terms of the fast bowlers, at least, and have sleepless nights, do you? It's not like facing up to somebody like a Bumrah or a Shaheen Shah Afridi who's not playing as well. And I suppose that nullifies the thing from each side, doesn't it? They've both got their spearhead of their pace bowling out injured, so it kind of cancels each other out in that respect. And yeah, I mean, you could look at Pakistan as well, but they have got the thing that Pakistan have got. They've got somebody like a Naseem Shah who, and we'll look at the matchups in our next episode when we look at that India versus Pakistan match in more detail. But, for example, they've got that extra pace there. Where have India got that? Hardik can crank it up a little bit when he needs to, but he's not your 90 plus mile an hour bowler who is going to scare the life out of somebody. And if these guys get into the rhythm, because all right, it's one thing bowling 95 miles an hour, but like we saw with Umran Malik, if you don't get in
Yeah.
the rhythm, if you don't put the ball in the right place, you're going to go for a lot of runs. And that could happen to Naseem Shah. But on the other hand, if he finds his rhythm one day, he could blow away a side and take 4 wickets easily, maybe more.
Yeah.
So that threat India haven't got, and I don't know how much of an issue that will be on the UAE wickets. We haven't seen the wickets, but the way they've been playing in recent IPL seasons and T20 World Cups, and we've seen the way things go out there. Do you think that's going to be an issue for India, or do you think maybe they're just going with three spinners and a couple of seamers, or what do you think the makeup of their side is going to be from the bowling point of view?
I think even last year in the T20 World Cup squad, they had three proper quicks: Bumrah, Bhuvi, Shami, along with Shardul Thakur and Hardik Pandya. Thakur, I don't. Yeah, he's just there to fill in the gaps. I don't like rate him very highly in T20s. Um, I probably they are making the same mistake this time also. They've just going in with three quicks along with Hardik Pandya. um, I think they will still play two seamers in their 11 along with Hardik Pandya and two spinners. I think that's how the makeup is going to be. I don't think if that's the the best way to go, but I think that's how it is going to be. Hardik Pandya, a lot will depend on his fitness. If he's fit, if he's not fit enough to bowl those 4 overs, India are really going to struggle. So, yeah.
Right, just before we look at India's batting in a little bit more detail, a reminder that 99.94 is more than just this podcast, of course. Jared Kimber has Red Inca. That focuses on a deep cricket topic from the global game. There's also Double Century, a look at the history of the game, and also podcasts on other teams on this network here on 99.94. You can go over and listen to West Indies, and that's called West Indies on 99.94. That's for the best Caribbean coverage that there is in the world of cricket audio. England on 99.94. It's got the north and south of the game covered on that one. South Africa on 99.94, looking at the radically changing nature of cricket in the Rainbow Nation. You can find them all on your podcast apps on YouTube or via the 99.94 app. So go and download that one right now. We can listen to us as well as we move on to India's batting. So we'll not look at maybe the side they're going to select ahead of their first game. We'll save that for the next episode. But look, Rohit Sharma, KL Rahul, Virat Kohli, Sky, Huda, Rishabh Pant, Dinesh Karthik, Hardik Pandya, and Jadeja, and Huda, your all-rounders. Pant, obviously, one of your two wicket-keeping options, along with Dinesh Karthik as well. Does it look like what India need? Is it going back to the old school, do you think? I mean, that
Yeah.
will depend on the selection of the 11, I suppose. But let's just assume they're going to go with, on paper, who they feel are the best batters there. And we know what they're going to do. Those top
Yeah.
three I mentioned are going to play. Rohit, KL, Virat Kohli. That's going to be your top three, regardless of anything else. Is that going to win India the tournament, do you think?
It's going to be a big litmus test for at least KL Rahul and Kohli. Rohit has been doing decently. He's not got the big scores, but yeah, he's batting aggressively. He's like walking the talk, so to say. It's going to be a big litmus test for Rahul and Virat Kohli. After the Asia Cup, India have 60-20 Is. So the Asia Cup. I am not very sure how many matches India will play in the Asia Cup. Like one, two, four or five. These 9 or 10 games in the next few months is going to probably um yeah, it's going to be a big test, and I won't be surprised if India don't pick Virat Kohli for the T20 World Cup squad if he doesn't do well in these next 8 or 9 games. This management has been taking the tough decisions. They've been backing the players they think is best for the side. So if Kohli, like especially the onus is on Kohli to, he's been given the break. Everyone was like, he needs a break. He's been struggling mentally. He's been given that break. So now it's up to him, to just raise his game, not only bat aggressively like India have been batting of late, but constantly score those big runs at a faster strike rate. He's been struggling against spin, no, and pace also. So yeah, I don't think India would go in with someone who's struggling very badly for the uh, T20 World Cup in Australia.
And let's a quick look at some of the other batting lineups then. I mean, look, Bangladesh, we spoke about some of their main guys in there. Mushfiqur with all the experience, Shakib with the X Factor as well. They've got a solid group that has been together for a few years now. Sri Lanka, it's been interesting with Sri Lanka, hasn't it? Because a lot of the senior guys have kind of made way in recent times, and this new crop has come in with some of the senior guys still there, and seems to have gelled really well on occasion, but then on other occasions just completely fallen to bits as well. They seem very inconsistent. I mean, you've got Afghanistan with the likes of Gurbaz at the top of the order, and some of those guys, Mohammed Nabi, but they're a little bit light in terms of Afghanistan. In terms of Pakistan, a lot depends on Barber and Rizwan at the top of the order, doesn't it? I mean, it goes without saying, really, they're quite light in their middle order in terms of world class players. They just simply haven't got any. Fakhar Zaman, you could say, on his day, coming in at number three, could cause chaos and win a game on his own, but hasn't really done that in T20 internationals in recent times. And then you've got Barber in the UAE. Barber's record is fabulous on paper. Well, half of his record is good on paper. He's 695 runs, average of 53.46. That's the half. But then the big one, the strike rate,
Yeah.
120.66. That's not good enough really for an opener in international T20 cricket these days, is it? That's probably, back in 2007, 8, 9, that might have been considered good. Very good on paper. But 120, I mean, we complain about KL Rahul scoring at 135, don't we, in the
Yeah.
IPL? And his international record, KL, is 140 plus his strike rate. So in comparison, Baba's record in the UAE, where he's proclaimed as some sort of goat, and look, he is one of the greatest batters in the world across formats, without doubt, and he will go on to break a lot of records, and he's great to watch. So we're not taking anything away from him, but just those stats, people say how good he is in the UAE, but you look at the strike rate, and it's not as if we see low scores in the UAE. If you go to places like Sharjah, and even early in a tournament, even places like Dubai and Abu Dhabi, you can score big runs there. When the pitches are fresh, you can score huge runs there, and we've seen it in the IPL. We've seen it over the last couple of years that scores of 200 are quite regular over there, or in and around 200 as well. So that strike rate not great, but when you look at his record against Sri Lanka in T20s, 79 runs in 6 innings, average of 15.8, and Bangladesh, 93 runs in 5 innings, average of 23.5. That might be a problem for them. He could turn it
Mm.
around, of course, and could change those records and smash, 70s, 80s, maybe even 100 against one or both of those sides. He could do that. But at the moment, those stats wouldn't suggest that Babar Azam is, at his best against particularly those two Asian sides. We know he's done well against India previously on his very limited outings,
Yeah.
and could quite easily smash anyone on his day. But that, I think, would be a problem when Pakistan look at that. Mohammed Rizwan, on the other hand, strikes at a better rate, but can be a little bit more of a risk taker as well. How do you see their batting lineup, sort of as
For
it goes
this
into the
Babar
tournament? So they got
Azam, yeah, I
go on.
I was just looking at his T20I stats. Is 129.44. So I just had like I was just wondering if he has an average of 45 in T20Is. So it makes you wonder. Like I was wondering if in India, in the subcontinent, is scoring runs, like how do you really gauge a T20I star? Like, do you look at his strike rate, or do you see, okay, wow, he's scoring at 45? Because Babar Azam, kind of with Kohli, also, the Kohli has done very well in some T20Is. You can call him like a superstar in T20Is, but he doesn't have the best strike rate. So, in the subcontinent, do you think the people we gauge the success of a T20I batter based on his average rather than his strike rate? And is that the correct way to go? Because we've seen KL Rahul also adopting that approach. He has an average of 50 but will have a strike rate of 125. Kind of, do you think it seeped in the players' minds also, like from the very start, that you have to keep on scoring runs and runs and runs, and then just not
It
caring for
depends.
runs
Look,
is
yeah, it
like
depends
kind of,
on.
yeah.
I know what you're saying. It depends on the makeup of your side, really. And for most of Kohli's career, he had so many other hitters. I mean, it's not as if he
Yeah.
couldn't hit. I mean, we've seen some fantastic innings at brilliant strike rates from Kohli in T20s over the years. So it's not as if he couldn't do it, but you need somebody to bat through, don't you? And Kohli is either opened or he's coming at number three more often. So, you lose an early wicket, he comes in, he bats through the innings and he's still scoring at a decent strike rate, provided that your likes of MS Dhoni, your Yuvraj Singhs, your Jadejas, whoever it is in the side at the time, is doing all the big hitting. And don't forget, Virat Kohli has been playing for India for many, many years.
Yeah.
And, you're going back even 10 years when he was, you know, first becoming a star, say 2012 to 2017, 18. He was, you know, in most people's minds, the greatest thing since sliced bread. He couldn't put a foot wrong when he was in an India shirt, in white shirt or in a blue shirt, whatever it was. He just performed more often than not. And the game has moved on even since then. Even in the last decade, even in the last 5 years, the game has moved on so much. And that is when Babar Azam has played most of his best cricket in the
Yeah.
last 5 years. Then you've got a question, oh, is that strike rate good enough? Because if you look at somebody like a Kohli, you take the last 5 years off and you look at before that, it would still be quite similar stats, maybe, slightly down on the strike rate, but the average was certainly up there, if not even a little bit better at that stage. But the game was a little bit different then. And the game has changed so much. The Indian
Mm.
approach has changed. So I think, look, it depends on the makeup of the side. But if you've got guys performing down the order and, smashing quick runs on a regular basis, then yeah, you can afford one guy at the top of the order who does that, who bats at 129, 133, whatever it might be, and has the good average and can bat through an innings more often than not, bat through 15, 17 overs and then leave it to the other guys. But if you've got two guys doing that in Baba and Rizwan, and then you've got Fakhar
Mm.
Zaman and the rest of the guys not really coming in and being able to perform like they'd want to, or like Pakistan would hope they'd want to, then that could be a problem. But listen, we'll discuss that all in a lot more detail on the next episode when we look ahead to the big one, India versus Pakistan. But for now, thank you very much for listening to us this week, and we'll be back shortly with that preview ahead of India versus Pakistan.